Hello, RWorld, and welcome back to this episode of RWorldTalk. I am super excited, as always. I know you guys are probably sick of hearing me say that, but we have real estate royalty, realtor royalty in the room. We have our past president for our local association, past president of Florida Realtors, and the future president of the National Association of Realtors, Ms. Christine Hansen. Welcome, Christine.
Hello, Chris. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks for being with us. Christine, when it comes to volunteerism, the dictionary should have your avatar directly beside the definition because you are genuinely a selfless person. We are truly excited to have you with us today. It was recently announced that you are the qualified eligible candidate for NAR First Vice President in 2025, which puts you in that executive leadership line. So congratulations to you. I know that you've got a very hard year ahead, traveling the country, making sure that everybody knows exactly who you are and what you stand for.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited.
I bet you are. I'm super excited for you. I know how much work you've put into this. It's not easy to get to these places, but we do it from our heart.
Absolutely.
And we do it for the right reason.
Yes.
Okay. Well, your campaign website is absolutely phenomenal. What caught my attention were the pillars that you have on the website. Navigate.
Yes.
Courage, advocacy, and connection.
Yes.
So what do these pillars mean to you, and how can they help change the national real estate landscape?
I love that. You know, the pillars are important, and they kind of came from stories. So advocate, when I was talking about what do we need to do at a national level? And we're an advocacy association.
Right.
So when I took that word, I wanted to take it a little bit differently. And I wanted to talk a little bit about when we advocate. It's not just, hey, let's go ahead and invest. Let's not just go vote. Let's not just act. But it's how. How do we do this? So an example that I had was back in 2007, when I was local president, we had property taxes going up super high. And so people were actually being priced out of their homes.
Right.
We went in, public policy committee, a bunch of us went in, and we were talking to lawmakers about the fact that we needed to make some changes. And I think it was a county commissioner, somebody came at me and they were just super negative and got in my face. And they're like, you don't care about the police and you don't care about property, the parks and the recreation.
Right.
And I mean, really like in my face. And so I sat there, and everybody in the room, you could have like heard a pin drop.
Oh, wow.
And I just took a breath and I said, I love your passion. And I said, I honestly believe we're on the same page because I care about the police. I care about our workforce housing. And I said, and I care about the consumers and our communities that live in their homes that are being forced to sell.
Right.
And before this huge increase, we had excellent parks and recreation. And I believe that if we can find a common ground, we could find a solution for this. And so we did. They passed it. So now property taxes can only go up 3% a year.
Right.
So when I think about advocacy, it's about being able to have those relationships where you can find the right wording, you can come to a common ground, you can have good conversations, because at the end, it's really just about the solution and not about our differences. So the advocate means a lot in my pillar.
Sometimes it's just about telling your story so that the other person understands where you're coming from. And with that little bit of education, they now realize that you guys are both on the same page.
Absolutely.
Just a different way of, basically putting the information forth.
Yes, and it wasn't like we were attacking things. We were trying to resolve issues that we were having. And instead of jumping because they were so negative, instead of rising to that, it was just kind of, let's just take a minute. So
well,
that
you're
really
very calming.
Sometimes.
Okay, so let's talk about the rest of the pillars.
So navigate, right now, there's so much changes and there's so many things going on, especially when we talk about artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And I was talking before, actually at one of our meetings that we just had, about the fact that we've seen changes. I've been doing this almost 36 years.
Wow.
And I've seen changes where I remember people wanting to sell me like a fax machine or moving. And I'm sure you've had this experience where all of a sudden we decided to go to paperless.
Right.
And it was like, wow, I'm not going to have these files anymore. And so it's scary.
Wasn't paperless scary?
It was so scary. It was just like, we kept them for like a year and did like dual because you're just afraid to let go of your papers.
I still have all my papers. My office manager operates the same way. She said, I just can't throw this out because what if it gets deleted somehow and I don't get it back?
We went paperless early on. We were one of the first offices and it was extremely scary. Yeah. But now I fast forward and we're talking about AI and the difference that it's making now, and people are concerned and they're scared.
Yeah.
So I'm urging people, especially as we navigate, lean into it, embrace it. How is it going to be able to make us better as realtors?
Right.
What can we do to utilize that to serve our communities and our consumers better? And then what safeguards do we need to put into place? So there's a lot with it. And so just kind of take it bite-sized, So navigating, I think there's a lot of things going on. I love connections.
Yes, you do.
Connecting is just having friends, building relationships way before you ever need it. I think that people want to feel heard, they want to be respected, and they want to feel safe that they can agree, disagree, bring up problems, solutions, whatever it is, without having it be they're looked down upon.
Right.
And I think that's the basis when you talk about connections is you know what, you have an opinion, I have an opinion. It may differ, but at the end of the day, we can share, and we may walk away with a more enhanced, better view than either one of us had coming to the table.
Right.
So I think,
or if we still disagree, we at least walk out of the room friends 100%. With an understanding of how the other person thinks and feels.
Absolutely. And it's funny because when I was vice president of advocacy in 2020, Mabel Guzman was vice president of Association Affairs. She and I are so different, like so different. And whenever they would ask us questions, do you like A or B? If she picked A, I knew I was picking B. It was just, we were just complete. But we knew that we had our hearts in the right direction.
Right.
We knew that we wanted the goal to be accomplished and that we were just respectful of each other. So we would laugh. And at the end, when they heard both sides, they created things that was probably better than if it was just my way or her way. So the connections matter, and being respectful truly, truly matters.
And that's not just in association politics. That should be in every single real estate transaction that you do. It should be in every conversation that you have with your friends, your neighbors, the people at the grocery store. I mean, you really need to make sure that you're connecting with people and trying to find solutions.
Yes.
There's no sense in arguing and walking away from, let's say we're in the middle of a transaction. If I think one way and you think the other way, we've got to find middle ground and keep things moving forward.
Absolutely.
You can't just fight about stuff and not answer your phone.
No, 100%. Or hang up on people or
exactly.
Do the mad text, capitals.
Yeah. All
no,
caps.
it's crazy. And so the last one is courage.
Mm-hmm.
In leadership, and as a realtor, but in leadership, we need to have courage to have difficult conversations. We need to be able to have the courage to say things that need to be said in a manner which still keeps relationships intact.
Yes.
So it's hard because people will, who wants to be confrontational? Who wants to have to call out and maybe share things that maybe people aren't doing correctly or recommending changes? If you don't, those people may never know. Or if you do and they get mad at you, you might have planted a seed that down the road they'll foster and make the changes, and you may never know. But having that courage to know that you're doing your best. So I always say that you can say anything to anyone with love and respect.
Absolutely.
And I stand by that, and having that courage. So even in leadership roles, you have to be able to sometimes not even react when a situation comes up.
Right.
I'm sure you know that in deals.
Been there.
Exactly. Yes. And then the last thing when it comes to courage is when something's on your plate, is to be able to say, you know what, first I want to fact find. Let me weed out the noise. Let me weed out anything that's not true. Look at the true facts, because then we'll have clarity on what the goal needs to be, and then create a solution or a path. And a lot of times people, when something comes at them, they want to hurry up and react or respond to it.
Right.
And it makes for poor decisions.
Correct.
So having the courage sometimes to just stop and take a breath. Those are my pillars.
I remember you being on stage, and I think it was for the NAR directors meeting that we had years ago up at Florida Realtors. And it's so funny how leaders can influence people without even knowing that they're doing it. And one of the things that you had said on the stage, and I will never forget it, you have to have the courage in your leadership journey on occasion, when you don't think that you're going to be able to give it your all, to say no.
Yes.
Somebody may offer you a position. Somebody may ask you for help on a project. Somebody may ask you to be on a PAG, a presidential advisory group. And sometimes you just have to say, you know what, I've got a lot on my plate right now and I would love to help you. I don't want to commit to this, but you can always give me a call if you need my opinion on something. And I thought that was, I held that so near and dear to my heart because it's so true. You have to have the courage to say no sometimes if you don't think that you're going to be able to give it your all. Otherwise, you're just hurting the entire membership as a whole.
Right. I appreciate your saying that. I do. That's probably one of the biggest things that I believe in is that people are afraid to say no, that they won't be asked again.
Right.
And so they'll say yes, and then they have so much on their plate that they don't do a great job, and then they're not asked again. So I think it goes back to courage as well.
Then you seem incompetent.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, or you don't care, or
Right. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So our industry is being challenged in many areas, as you know. Yes. I'm so glad that you are one of the leaders that's going to be helping us navigate all these things. There you go. See, I used one of your words. Yeah. But it is being challenged in many areas. I know the realtors are resilient. We can work through any challenges, weather any storm. But what are two things looking down the road into the future that we need to do better on a national level?
I really... there's a lot of challenges coming up. And I think that we have, at the national level, we have a lot of really good systems in place for advocacy.
Yep.
However, I do feel that being able, especially now where we have social media, we have, something happens 2 minutes later, everybody knows about it.
Right.
I think that we need to be better at telling our stories, personal stories, that we need to engage our members. If you can just even imagine, we have over 1.5 million members. If we even had half be able to share true stories of what their buyers or sellers or different people in their communities were dealing with, that were issues that needed to be addressed. And we could go and on legislative days, instead of reading talking points, be able to go and say, can we share 3 or 4 stories that have come to us, or 5 stories, or could we collectively share multiple stories about something that we need you to find a solution for? Or here's a solution based on the stories we've heard.
Right.
So I'd love to be able to say, let's really engage the members. Their voice matters, and telling the story, I believe, is the best way to move the dial versus just talk issues based.
So right now, one thing that I've noticed, and we talked about this before, the story that we're telling is, I just got this house under contract in one day. And then everybody thinks that we did absolutely nothing to sell a home. The story that we need to be telling is the pitfalls that we went through with the inspection, the difficulties that we had with every single layer of that transaction, with when it be negotiations or something that happened with the title company, pitfalls through the mortgage process. I mean, there's 100 different things that we do throughout the course of a transaction. But then we end up getting to a Facebook post that says, I sold a house in 2 days.
Right. No,
this is not the story that we need to be telling people.
And
this is a hard business.
Yes. And what about all the listings that you don't get? Or what about the properties where something happens beyond your control? They don't get insurance and the deal falls through.
Right.
So, these are things where we need to be able to, it's important for our customers that we help them to feel calm and safeguarded through a transaction.
Absolutely.
But on the other flip side of it, there's got to be a way for us to be better at being able to say, hey, listen, we're professionals. We show up, we have the education, we have the relationships with the right people to get us through those humps. And I definitely agree with you. When I see that, it makes me crazy. Yes, it really does.
Okay, guys, you heard that right from Christine Hansen. Stop posting that you sold a house in 2 days. Talk to them about the thousands of dollars that you spent on marketing, which is why you got the buyer in 2 days.
Or thank the other agent that on the other side of the deal was professional, knowledgeable, and helped you navigate. See, I'm using my pillars too.
Love it.
Right through to the closing.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about this conversation on a local level. I may be a little bit biased being the president here, but I think we have the best realtor association right here at RWorld, right in our own backyard. We're doing things that state associations and the National Association is doing that gain national attention, like our consumer campaign. Is there something in our water down here? I mean, I don't know what's going on, but we have produced a large number of noteworthy leaders right from this local association, like yourself.
Thank you.
You've served on all 3 levels. You've done fantastic work with the National Association as well. But what is it about RWorld that inspires leaders like you to stay involved?
When I first got involved, I focused in the beginning on building my career. We have to do that as new agents. And I had a mentor, and that mentor said to me, if you want to be a successful realtor and make a difference, get involved with your local association. What I love about our association is there's so many ways to get involved, whether it's attending membership meetings, whether it's the networking events, whether it's the serving on a committee. We have the Leadership Academy, which I love. There's so many avenues. And so for a member, I joke because I was going to use the example, like, if you go to a gym, you have to actually go there. But I don't want to go to that. I don't want to go to that right now. But in our association, absolutely. If you are somebody who has a calling and you get involved, people are going to notice. We rise people up. We look for talent and we help them and nurture them to grow them. And for you as president, I've seen the things that you've done where you're out and you reach out to people and you're talking to people and sharing with them how to get involved and how to be able to elevate what they do within this association and be recognized even at the state level. So I think it's just that culture of lifting people up, and there's enough for everyone, and not being so afraid if somebody moves up, I won't. And
absolutely.
And so, yeah, so I definitely think, and then the advertising, the campaign, the consumer campaign is fantastic. So kudos to all of you, because I know that's been a multiple years in the process. And
our communications team has done an incredible job. That consumer campaign has been a baby of several presidents that have kept trying to push things forward. And we finally got to last year during President Melendez's year, producing 2 commercials, and then this year our third. It's wildly successful. And you had just mentioned something. You mentioned the Leadership Academy. We have a fantastic Leadership Academy this year. The mentees were all up at Florida Realtors, and they really did a great job. They really showed up. And they showed people the kind of talent that we have right here in our local association. But I remember all the people who have come before me and people who had just put little bugs in my ear to say, you're doing great at this, or, you're really doing great with public speaking, even though at the time, whenever I got in front of people, I would go blind and I couldn't hear. So I was like blind and deaf, standing in front of this room full of people, shaking like a leaf. But you have people that encourage you and inspire you. And I don't know if I actually was doing great back then, but they told me that I was. So it inspired me to keep going and keep practicing. You've got to practice the craft. Yes. And I have taken that to heart, and I've tried to be that inspiration and that mentor for all the people who are coming behind me, because we need these leaders to keep driving. This association is huge.
Yes.
The state association, the national association, like you said, 1.5 million realtors. Yeah. They need leaders. Yes. They need somebody who's going to show them the way and encourage and inspire them. You've done a fantastic job of it. I can only hope that somebody's going to do something extra, because I had given them that little bit of inspiration.
Oh, I can guarantee you, Chris, 100% that you will, and people will move forward because of your encouragement and also your leadership, because I've seen you and you take the time, you're present, and you talk to the members and make them feel wanted and respected and appreciated. And from a leadership point, it's important because we get busy. We have a lot on our plate to go from A to B, but taking that time and just acknowledging that member's there matters to them. So kudos to you. Yes.
Well, thank you for that. This is about you. So we're gonna there's more than likely an agent watching this podcast, hopefully looking for some inspiration. But I have the time to serve and volunteer, or they may be saying, I've got the time to serve and volunteer. I may be ready to step up, level up, that sort of thing. So what would you say to those individuals to inspire them on their journey, now that we're talking about inspiring younger leaders?
So we were talking earlier, and I think one of the things, if I could really talk to members that are like, should I get involved? Should I move up in leadership? Is to kind of savor the journey. I feel like sometimes now, if somebody puts in for the Leadership Academy and they don't get it right away, they get discouraged. Or if you want to be on a committee and there's only so many people, they get frustrated. The journey is one where you can participate and make a difference no matter what your title is.
Right.
And so, start the member that wants to be, let's say, inspired to move up. Start coming to meetings, start having a voice, start talking to people, start being, kind of curious, asking questions, getting to know our systems, sitting in meetings, a lot of times just being there and listening and watching and learning versus just, okay, I want to do this tomorrow. I'm going to be president,
Right.
I think slow things down a little bit. The other thing for inspiring people is please, please, please reach out to the leaders, reach out to people that are already engaged. They'll help you. We'll help the
Absolutely.
members. And we want to go to the Leadership Academy. We have those kind of systems in place. And I think that's the key, is just for people to savor the journey. There's no rush. Take one step at a time, but keep moving forward.
Right. Yeah, I've actually had up-and-coming leaders that have sent me text messages, phone calls, sent note cards to the office. I've had people that have said, can I just sit down with you and have a coffee? Right. And find out exactly what it is that you do, why it is that you do it, because this is something that I think I would be interested in doing. Mm-hmm. And you change those people's mentality about maybe why they're looking to get involved.
Yes.
And give them direction on the best way for them to serve. They're so appreciative, but I'm also so appreciative that they have the passion and that they're actually reaching out as a genuine, with genuine interest. Yes. And a willingness to learn. They want as much knowledge as they possibly can have. And those are the people that I now look at when we're going to appoint committees, or we're picking chairs, or we're picking vice chairs. It's those people that said, this is what I think that I could do for the association.
Yes.
And you really get taken back by that and say, okay, this person they're so young in their leadership journey. I don't mean young age-wise, but just new to the leadership journey. And those people are so inspiring to me.
Yes.
They've got ideas that I never even thought about, because they're working realtors that are not involved with leadership, that are saying, hey, this is something that I noticed, and I think that this is a way that I can contribute and maybe fix something that a bunch of my colleagues think that we could really use some improvement on. Those are great stories.
Yes.
It's fantastic. And now you're really looking at a true leader.
Well, I'm going to jump in because you really hit on something. Sometimes you see members and they see a situation or they see something and they come up with a solution, and they don't care whether they're on a committee or they have a title. They're wanting to help, and they're wanting to say, hey, I saw this, and can we maybe fix this? And you can see that energy and that positivity. Yep. Those are the kind of people that shine, are those that are looking to advance the association, not just advance themselves. So It's a little bit of a fine line, because you want them to ask, but then also there's timing. If you're in the middle of about to walk up on stage and someone says, hey, do you have a second? It's kind of like, nope. Can you read the room? So yeah, it's timing, but I definitely feel that there's so many people that are doing it for the right reason. And it's inspiring, and it gets me excited to think about, wow, I remember my journey. And it definitely is something that I look back on, and the relationships and the experiences that I've had are really, truly priceless. And I still have friends today, So.
Oh, gosh, the friends that you make throughout this leadership journey is absolutely incredible. Yeah. I know people all across the country. It's great.
Yes.
It's so great. So speaking of inspiration, can you share with us a story about someone who inspired you to be on this leadership journey, or inspired you to give back to your community, give back to the association?
So I was really thinking about, people that inspire me, because I could go through and I could say, first, my father when I was young, because he always instilled in me about giving back and to really caring about people, so that would be somebody who's always inspired me just to the root of who I am. And then I was like, okay, so when I was at Florida Realtors, we used to have it where we could go and line up and you could talk to an incoming NAR president.
Okay.
And I was still kind of newer in the realm of Florida Realtors and what we were doing. And this was probably like 2005. I think I'd only been involved maybe since 2003. So this is like 2005, 2006. And someone who was a friend of mine said, hey, I'm going to go meet an incoming NAR president. Do you want to come? And I'm like, okay, that sounds fun. So instead of going to my room and hiding out, people don't realize sometimes I was a little shy. I know it's hard to believe. So anyway, so I waited in this line, and all of a sudden, I went in, and it was Dick Gaylord. Okay. And he passed NAR president in 2007, 2008. President, and he came in, and so he's like, hey, hi. I'm like, hi. I was like, wow, this is so cool. And he's like, well, share with me, what do you want? And I wasn't prepared for that. And I teach people, if somebody says what would you like to do, have an answer. Right. Because if you're like, oh, wherever you want me, it doesn't help. But truly, I had never even thought about anything at the national level. I was just really navigating our state. And so he's like, and I was just like, I didn't really know what to say. So I was just like, well, I really want to be happy. And so we just started laughing. We just started talking. He goes, well, tell me about yourself. And I just said, honestly, I'm really just engaged with my state. I'm excited. I've been local president and I'm on my way now to move up. Or I think at the time I was moving up to be local president. That was it. Yes. And so I was like, this is exciting for me. And I was just happy. And so we ended up talking and laughing. And so fast forward, Dick put me on the strategic planning committee at NAR.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up staying there for, I think, 7 or 8 years.
That's an impressive position.
Well, he also put so many other leaders that you would know of now. There was like 10 or 11 of us that during his year and his tenure there, he was bringing newbies and people up. Okay. And so he inspired me in ways that I wasn't even knowing I was looking for.
Right.
And then the relationships and what I learned from this big, huge association, what we could do, it was just like, wow, this is just incredible. So I think that was something that was an accidental inspiration, but definitely noteworthy, because you never know. Sometimes you're just in the right place at the right time and you say yes.
Yep. Wow. I had the pleasure of meeting a past NAR president as well at President's Circle a few years back when I was in the NAR Mentor-Mentee program through Florida Realtors. Kathy Watley, the warden, was wrecking the whip on us. But we all had, as part of our project, that we had to go and have an interview with the past NAR president. And past President Brown is the one that I received.
Yes.
And this 15-minute conversation turned into 45 minutes of the two of us sitting way back at the end of this hallway where nobody else was around. I had all my questions written out. I'm taking notes. I'm doing all these things. And then it just turned into an organic conversation that ended up with the two of us crying in a corner 45 minutes later, because it was just fate that our paths had crossed like that. I think Kathy just picked the two right people to be together, and he was so inspiring. Literally, I'm like sobbing tears having this conversation with him, because we were so similar and really had same feelings on a lot of issues and had similar pasts and upbringings and things like that. It was really amazing, an amazing experience. And I think that any way that we could possibly inspire people, like I said, is just you're really changing somebody's life for the better.
And you said, first he took the time for you.
Yep.
And second of all, when you kind of put everything else aside and just had an honest, open, authentic conversation, is where, and I think that's another part of it in this crazy world, is we're so busy, and we're so busy checking off boxes. We're so busy trying to get things done. When are we just present?
Right.
And then that's when many things
the magic
can happen.
happens.
Yeah, completely.
Okay. Well, I know you're super busy. I am going to ask you my final question that I ask every guest on the show.
Okay.
Tell us about a little Florida gem. What do you absolutely love about living in South Florida? It could be a park, it could be a restaurant, it could be anything that you love.
For Florida, for me, I love our beaches. I still do. I'm a beach girl. It's my happy place. I still make time. Absolutely. I don't care if it's just an hour or two to put the toes in the sand.
Yeah.
I'm there. It's just the sunshine and the beach. I think sitting and looking out at the ocean, it kind of reminds you of how small we really are.
Yeah.
And how big this world really is, and kind of puts things into perspective.
Right.
And I just breathe it all in, and it helps recenter me. So yeah, the beaches.
I think you just wrote a Kenny Chesney song.
Wait, and I think a dog got lost? No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Well, they say salt heals all wounds. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I know how busy you are, and we are truly, truly looking forward to your leadership. I think that you are just going to do fantastic things for every Realtor member out there, because I know that your heart is truly in it.
Thank you so much, Chris. And you have been such an incredible president, and I know that you have inspired so many. And just for my campaign tagline, it's to elevate others. And so I think that's exactly what you're doing. So thank you for everything you do.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Well, we will see you all here next time on RWorldTalk. I really hope you enjoyed this one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.